All right.
That was my fault. Yep, I got it.
So we did not have sound anywhere, right? Because we do not even have sound here.
Let me start again. Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be around the world. Welcome to Tales from the Jar Side. So this is the live stream, and it looks like we are getting the sound now, so that's good. And yeah, of course we didn't have sound. I had the mute button on, you know.
Right, yes.
That was all my fault. At any rate, my name is Ken Cousin, and I am joined by Bruno
Souza.
Yes. Who is quite well known in the Java community. If you're not familiar with him, there's a hello from, does that say feet? From Lille. There we go. Hey, Vincent, how are you? And I know we have Mala as well. So here's Mala.
Yes, Mala.
Hey, Mala. There. Always good to see Mala. Yeah, had a great time there. Thank you. We are currently we're not exactly in Hanya, Crete. We're outside of Hanya.
Outside of Hanya,
yeah. My wife told me the name of the town, and I already forgot, you know. But we are on the island of Crete at a conference called, of course,
JCrete, right?
JCrete, yes. Organized by Heinz Kabutz, you know. Yes. And it's an unconference. So the idea is that every day for the first 15, 20 minutes, people make pitches to the attendees about what topics they want to talk about. And then we vote, which takes too long, you know.
No, it's just like a minute or two, right?
Yeah, and then we divide up, and they assign the talks to different rooms, and we attended. But because this is Crete and we're in the Mediterranean, there's also time for visiting beaches, and there's dinners, and there's parties, and you know.
Yeah. So the good thing is that half of the day we do talks in rooms like this one, right? So we're here in the library, right? So we do talks like in this room, and we have nice conversations, and have conversations like the one we're having right now, but you know, in the room. And then on the other half of the day, we continue to have conversations, but now in the beach, right? In the beach, swimming in the sea. Awesome, right? So that's perfect. So this is the first time I'm here on JCrete. So
oh, really? This is your first time?
Yes, you haven't been here before?
This is my first one as well.
All right. So we're both newbies at JCrete, right? Instead of being fun.
This is actually at the Orthodox Academy of Crete, for what it's worth. Oh, hey, you got to see my promo. You ready?
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun. You ready?
Okay, go ahead.
Let's do this.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Like
so we are here on Tales for the Jar Side,
right?
With Ken, right? So Ken, thanks a lot for having me here, man.
Oh,
it's awesome. Hey. It's awesome to have this conversation. And one thing that I love to do is exactly having this conversation with the audience, right? So, you know, because it's not very easy for us to do what we're doing here, right? So traveling and coming to Crete for all places and spend a week here having discussions. It's not very easy to do that. So what I love about what you're doing, it's like, you know, actually being able to talk with people online live.
Yeah.
I think that's an awesome way to actually connect with people and do the same thing, you know, sometimes in a smaller scale, sometimes a larger scale, because you have more people watching sometimes, right?
Oh, we're leveraging your audience, so that's wonderful. For people who don't know Bruno, because if you're on let me introduce both of us, since some of you are coming from Bruno's channel and some from mine. Brief comment on mine. We are both Java champions, of course.
Yes.
Which is as much a marketing thing as anything else. So it's nice. It's good that that's working, but that's not the big issue. We both have been at conferences for many years. I'm the author of 6 books. One from Manning, the Making Java Groovy. 2 from O'Reilly, 3 from O'Reilly. The Gradle recipes for Android and the Modern Java recipes. And actually, what am I leaving out? My goodness.
You're leaving out the most important one, right? So
not there yet. No. And the Kotlin cookbook too. The Kotlin cookbook. Those are all at O'Reilly. And then the ones at Pragmatic Programmers are, the most recent one is the Makito Made Clear, but the one that Bruno cares about is the one that should have been called all along Managing Your Manager. Yes. That was always the working title, but is in fact called Help Your Boss Help You, for what it's worth. I'll paste a link in the comment there.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about some of that. But I'm an independent person. I teach a lot of software development training classes, especially online. So author, speaker, I guess and developer somewhat as well. whereas Bruno you're the head of the Brazil group.
Yes. Mal is saying that we don't need introduction, right? So I agree with Mal. We should just go ahead. So before I actually talk a little bit about myself, right? So how about you guys tell us what you like to discuss here, right? So you have 2 Java champions directly from Crete, right? We're going to talk about what is that down? Oh.
I just said.
Oh, you said okay, right?
Yeah.
I thought
I'll put in
the right?
the help your.
So yeah. So I think that what we want to do here is we want to talk to you guys about what you want to know about JCrete, about Java, maybe about Java champions, or maybe manager.
But we do have plans. I mean, it's not just. And in fact, one of the things I really like to do. Oh, we got somebody from India. Yes. Welcome, Ravesh.
Hey, Ravesh, how you doing?
I assume it looks like it might be Ravish. I might have said that wrong. Please correct me if I got it wrong. I don't want it to feel like we haven't thought about what to say and what to plan and everything. And one of the things I like to do on this live stream is to find out how you got involved in the Java community. Cool. What's a little bit of your story? What brought you in, and maybe is important, what keeps you inside the community?
Cool. That's a good topic, right? So, and then I can connect the introduction, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So what got me started in the Java community? So So my personal story, right? So this one day I was having this discussion with my dad because I was at university, and my dad
in Brazil,
yes,
okay.
Right. So and I was working, right? And so my dad told me, "Oh no, you should stop working, right? Finish university first. That should be a main goal."
You were working while you were in school.
I worked on yeah. So I started working the second month I was there, right?
Oh wow!
And so so I really want to do this, and so my dad was like, "No, you should stop." So we went back and forth this many times. So I was visiting him in his house in his city, right? So I was visiting him, and I said, and he had convinced me to stop working, right? And I had stopped working, so I was visiting him. I said, "Dad, you know what? This not working thing is not working for me."
Really?
Right?
Just being in school was not enough for you.
It's not working for me.
Okay.
And so I said, "No, I'm gonna go back to work." And he's like, "No, you shouldn't do this, right? So I can help you. So why don't need to work?" And I said, "No, but I want to work." And being a stupid teenager, right? So I started. We went on this discussion. I started yelling at my dad, right? And I got mad at him, and I went away and slammed the door in his face.
Oh my!
It was really. I'm not proud of what I did, right? And so he was really mad at me, and we were at the beach, and we got the car back home, and I was mad at him, and he was mad at me. And so when I got home, I was opened the door, right? The phone was ringing, right? And so I pick up the phone, and the voice on the other side said, "Bruno, Newton from Sun Microsystems is looking for a trainee. And if you want," he said that if you want, the position is yours."
Oh, wow.
And so that moment, my dad is still pissed off with me. He's still wearing his beach clothes, right?
Okay.
He sat down on his computer to help me write my first resume.
Oh, really? So,
right.
Okay.
So at that point, my dad had all the power. He could just said, "No, if you do that, but he helping me." So I joined Sun, all the tremets and everything, about a month later.
Roughly what year are we talking?
That's 1995, right? So,
oh, wow. So Java was shiny and new.
No.
Not even there.
I joined Sun 1 week before the first demonstration of Java, right?
Oh,
Public
wow.
demonstration of Java, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I had this opportunity because I joined Sun. The first day of work, there was a guy from the US, right? They came to do a Solaris class.
Oh,
right. And so I went, I was there first day. My boss said, just go watch this class this week, right? So it's good introduction for you. So I went to watch this class.
To learn the operating system?
Yeah, to learn Solaris, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because that's what Sun did, right?
Yeah,
Solaris, right? So then said, just go and watch that. And so I was sitting there, and the guy, it was lunchtime, right? And the guy said, "So where should I go lunch?" Right? I said, "Well, look, this is my first day here too, right? So let's figure out together. At least I speak Portuguese, right?" And so during lunch, I was telling him, I said, "I'm very excited about joining Sun, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to do because I'm a developer, right? And Sun, just kind of in Brazil, Sun was an advanced sales post of hardware, right?
Right. That was
So that's
right.
And
Everything.
so he told me, I said, you know what? There is something that Sun is doing on software development. And he said, there's this oak thing.
Yeah.
And so he pointed me. And so when we got back to the office, he pointed me to the internal website of Sun. And it was already called Java, right?
Oh,
But
they changed the name already. Okay.
Yeah. So he knew as oak, right?
Uh-huh.
But he pointed me to this, it was already called Java. And I was like, oh man, that sounds so cool, right? So, and then the following week, John Gage made the first public demonstration of Java.
Oh, wow.
So now here's the thing. Here's what the important part of the story for me. At that moment, right? If my father had used his, the power that he had, right, to say, no, you should not work, I would just follow along, right? And then the Java man would never exist. Right?
Yeah. For those who don't get that reference, Bruno's handle everywhere is BR Java Man.
Right. Yes.
So go ahead.
Because I've been named the Brazilian Java Man.
Yeah.
Since Scott McNeely showed up in the Time magazine he was a Java Man, right?
Yeah,
so everyone started calling me the Brazilian Java Man.
Okay.
Right. So you know the real reason why I'm Java Man?
What?
Because the domain name is mine. javaman.com.br is my domain name, right? So I got that fame, right?
But that's not the one you wanted me to share out.
Right.
Interestingly enough.
But yeah, that's okay, right?
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, Ken, the thing that really strikes me is that, very early in my career, I learned that if people help you on the things that you want to do, you have a much higher chance of advancing, right? We
all need allies,
right? Yeah. And it's not about what you want for other people; it's what they want for themselves, right? And so my dad helped me on what I wanted to do, even though he was against that. And we're off. Okay, we're back again.
No, we're back.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's awesome. And that's how I got started. So I actually didn't get started into the Java community, right?
Right.
I was actually helping build the Java community from the very beginning of it, right?
So how long were you with Sun?
So on this first time for 5 years, I worked until 2000.
Okay, so then the bubble
Sun.
burst.
Yeah. Then I left Sun and I built my own company, and then I came back in 2004.
Oh, okay.
I came back to work for a few more years as a NetBeans community manager.
NetBeans?
Yeah.
I've heard of it. I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, I've heard of it too.
Yeah.
It's called Apache NetBeans today, right?
Well, the funny part, I always remember the story I heard. I mean, I remember when Eclipse was released.
Right.
And that's what, 2001? Might have been 2000, overlap, 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
And it was such a staggering improvement over all the shareware editors that were out there. And it was free. So it wiped out the commercial market.
Yeah, before that we had JBuilder, right?
And we had
JBuilder was dominating the
Visual
whole thing.
Age for Java and all those other, the IBM one, but yeah, JBuilder was huge.
JBuilder was huge, right?
Right,
yeah.
And I was only using shareware. I mean, I'll tell you my story in a minute, but I was only using shareware editors at the time when I was teaching. I started teaching training classes in 2000, and Eclipse came out, and I went, "Wow, this is fantastic!" And it didn't occur to me. I mean, I knew IBM was the head of the consortium, but it did not occur to me for, I don't know, a couple of years until somebody pointed out there's a relationship between the word Eclipse and the word Sun.
Right, yes.
A relationship which Sun saw immediately and IBM denies to this day.
Right.
But, and then of course, Sun in reaction created NetBeans, and they were always a small but very vocal community of people that you didn't want to ignore.
Right.
But I haven't. Yeah, go ahead.
I just say hello to Vincent Myers.
Yeah,
right?
Vincent's
Hey,
here,
Vincent,
right?
how you doing, man? Good to see you.
Oh, so she's glad to hear about how you became the Brazilian Java.
Yes, right.
See, no, the funny part for me, I mean, I was a career changer. I was very different from that. I came from engineering, although I was a research scientist, and I've got like too many academic degrees and all that stuff. And people always said, "Why did you leave that for IT?" And it turned out, I mean, I always liked the software side of it anyway, but my original plan was to be a professor somewhere. That's what I always thought was going to be my goal. But then I saw what the life of a professor was like, and I was like, geez, I don't know if I want that. I like the teaching side of it, but I didn't want to. I mean, doing research, that's really hard,
Right.
Oh, we've got somebody from Barcelona. Wonderful.
Hey,
Right. That's Vincent from Barcelona.
Oh, he's on Dev BCN.
Oh, Dev
right?
BCN's
That's
going on this
awesome.
weekend, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Vincent, why don't you come, since you're in Barcelona, man, why don't you come to JB's next week, right? So it's going to be 10, 11, and 12, right? Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. So I'm going to be there, right? So
you're
come with
going there?
us. Yes. So since you could not be here in Crete, right? So how about, say hello to everyone from Dev BCN right there for us. And maybe you can come to Ibiza next week.
I know Trisha G is there. I saw some posts
Cool.
from her.
Nice.
And I know there's a lot of good people there.
Yeah.
The Alvaro will be probably headed from here to there, I imagine.
Right. Yes,
Likewise.
he's gonna be on JB's next week. Yes.
So, at any rate, I was I didn't like the hard problem with research was always begging for money and things. I never liked doing any of that. And all the easy problems were solved, and that wasn't any fun. And I had much more fun learning about stuff and then telling everybody about it. So one day I switched from engineering and I joined a group which nowadays would be really hot, but back then was very quiet. He says his wife would kill him.
Bring her with you, man. That's the secret, right? So bring her with you.
The group that I joined was an AI group, interestingly enough. Neural networks, genetic algorithms, things like that. And when I switched from engineering to that, it took me about 2 months to realize that 10, 15 years of coding in Fortran hadn't really taught me anything about software development.
Right.
So I went back to school at night to go get the Master's of Computer Science. And I'm sitting in a networking class on a Saturday morning, and I was annoyed, partly because it was a Saturday morning, and partly because another member of our team was, she and a couple other people were going to get training in Java. So this was 2000.
Okay.
And I was annoyed because, I already knew Java, sort of. I hadn't gotten certified yet or anything, but that was something I wanted to do. And I'm like, why didn't I get to do any of that stuff? And they're off there on their own. And a light bulb finally went off. And I went, I wonder who teaches those classes.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That I could do that, and that's what started everything for me. When I got back to work, I went and said, who arranges training classes here and who do they contact? Are there companies in the area? Can I learn the business? Within 6 months, I left by May. My first training class was the beginning of June of 2000, and I've been doing primarily training classes.
That's awesome.
Ever since I went on my own in 2005. So it's been about 18 years now.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm getting older. At any rate.
That's good. That's just good.
All
right, so Benjamin, say hello. Here. Hey, hello, Benjamin. How are you doing?
Yeah, let us know where you're hanging out at the moment.
Yeah.
Again, it's up to you. You don't have to share anything you don't want to, but I'd love to hear.
Yeah.
So you were at Sun, and then you were on your own, and then you went back to Sun, you said, or?
Yeah. So I on 2000 I started a consulting company, right? So I had this friend of mine that want me, to move to his company in the U.S. Right? They had a consulting company in the U.S.
You went to the U.S.?
No. So he wanted me to do that. He wanted to hire me to go to the U.S. and as a consulting company. And I told him, I said, no, I want, if you want to hire me, I want to build a team here in Brazil.
Where in Brazil, by the way?
So I was in São Paulo.
Okay, São Paulo.
That's where I live today. I'm not from there. I'm from Brasilia, the capital.
Oh,
but I went to São Paulo to study and
okay.
So then this friend of mine wanted me to do that. I said, no, if you hire me to work in Brazil, right, and build a team here, I love to do that. And so I joined that company, and then later on we actually acquired that company, right, because they wanted to close down the Brazil office.
Sun did?
No, not Sun.
The other company.
It's called Suma Technology. So they want to close down the Brazil office, and then we acquired the Brazilian office, and then so I've been working on my own company since 2000. But when it got to around 2000, I think it's 2005. 2005, that's when Sun, the NetBeans team needed someone to help, promote NetBeans and all that. So they had a great evangelist team, but they were not very close to the community. So they hired me for the NetBeans community manager, and it was just one of those offers that was impossible to refuse, right? So then then they agreed that I could continue to be a owner of my company working for NetBeans, right? So that's what I did. So
how long did that last?
That 4 years, right, until Oracle acquired Sun.
I was going to say you're going to run into the acquisition at some point. So
yeah.
You got a big stake in that, right? No,
a big stake, right? Well, I got so I stay there. Actually, it's funny because I told my friend, my partners at Summa, they said, "Oh, Bruno, but is that like a temporary thing, or is that or are you just going to work for Sun forever?" Right? Because we have to decide if you continue a partner of the company or not, right?
Right.
And I said, look, the NetBeans project, I think is a 3-year project, right?
Oh.
Because because NetBeans had this marketing team that was separated from Sun marketing, right? And I said, either we're very successful, and then at some point the marketing team is going to take over, right? Because it's very successful, or we're not successful at all, and then we just disappear, right? So I thought it was like a 3-year project, and I got this right. Yeah, I got this right on spot, because after 3 years, the NetBeans team was absorbed into the marketing team for Sun, right?
They were
absorbed, and then I left the marketing team.
So where did you go?
And then I went to work with open source in Sun, right? So I reported to Simon Phipps. There was the open source community.
Okay.
Simon, yes, you know him. Yes.
I know the name. I haven't met him. Yeah.
So Simon Phipps
everybody knows the name.
Yes, he was the Sun chief open source officer, and so
that's Mala. Yeah,
8 years on training is great, right? I enjoy learning from you while attending your sessions at GIDS Bangalore.
You have time to look at it. I didn't mean to interrupt your story. I was just going to let everybody see the comments.
It's awesome. That's great. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you.
So
anyway, so how long did you stay then?
And then that's when Oracle acquired Sun.
And what did you decide to do at that point?
I didn't decide anything, right? I said, well, I'll wait and see, right? So then what happened was that in the last, so Oracle acquired Sun at the beginning of the year, but they took over in January or February next year.
Okay, so it took a while, yeah.
Yeah, so but in November, that's when I got laid off.
Oh,
that's good.
Oh, so it worked out well then.
Oh, it was perfect, right? Yeah. Oh man, being laid off by Sun before Oracle acquired it was awesome.
Well, I got to get back to that, but I do want to get to that question about the Java libraries and everything, because I do want to address that. But I have to tell a comment first. At this conference at JCrete, as I mentioned, we put up proposals, and then everybody kind of votes. And you only have like 30 seconds to say what you want to talk about, and some of them pretty free form. But Andres Almire, who's a good friend who I do enjoy giving a hard time to on a regular basis, he wanted to do one on, I can't help calling it Java PMS, the Java Platform Module System, right? Modules. And I actually booed.
You booed.
And several people joined in.
Oh, man.
And he informed me that was the first time he could remember at a JCrete conference that anybody ever booed a proposal. Of course, I was mostly doing that to give Andres a hard time. But I was thinking last night, actually this morning, that I was going to get up and put in my own proposal. And I was going to say, all right, let me put in a combination of topics guaranteed to get a boo for this. So I was going to propose Mockito, which I like, because I wrote a whole book on Mockito, but there's a group of people who just don't like, mocks and stubs at all. They get mad. And modules and Lombok, which is what this person said. Yeah, don't include Lombok. No bytecode manipulation here. That would be terrible. Yeah. And then I thought if that doesn't get boozed, then it would have to be what, EJBs maybe? Would be the one that would get. Yeah, that people not that.
Maybe not AJBs in general, but yes, but persistent AGBs would be perfect, right?
So the EJB entity beans.
Yeah, entity beans, right? Yes,
before pre-hibernate.
Yeah, entity beans would get guaranteed to get a boo.
Yeah, right? But I didn't have the bravery to do it. I didn't get up there and do it. I was thinking of getting up there tomorrow and saying, okay, I'm going to propose 12 talks, or something.
Right.
I'm going to suggest, for example, I don't have a title for this one, but whatever it is, I want to be in the room with air conditioning, that's all that really matters. Or one that uses, the newer thing in Java with the single source code execution.
The air conditioning one might not get booed at all.
No,
right?
no,
So
no. People would go for that.
Yes, for sure.
You could do the single source code execution that doesn't have to compile it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to call that Java script. See how that would go over maybe to work with something like that. Anyway, just to pick a couple of libraries, just to give a vague answer to this. Of course, I spent a lot of time with the Spring Framework, so I wouldn't call that a library necessarily, but I definitely do that. The library proposed one on struts. Yeah, struts 1, 2. Struts 2, that was a disaster. Oh my goodness. But I did a lot of training in those early days on struts 1.
There's 2 companies migrating.
Oh, please don't say that.
Yes,
but yes, I'm sure you're right.
Yes.
I like these days the library that there's a framework I'm excited about, and there's a library I'm excited about. The library is AssertJ.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into that because, again, the Spring people include it automatically. And therefore, they have a lot of examples. And it's all syntactic sugar. It doesn't do anything different than your test, but it makes them far more readable and gives lots of options. And the way they handle exceptions is just beautiful. I put a video about that on my channel. But the other one would be test containers, of course. The rise of the test containers framework is just fantastic. I mean, to do integration tests where it manages the container, and not just with the databases, it also does it with like browser automation tools like Selenium. I think that's probably the best open source project to come along in years. And that's not to put down any other ones. I think it's that good. Mm-hmm. Do you play with that at all?
So yes, test containers is awesome, right? So so one interesting thing that's that we see in Java, right? So
struts. I'm trying to recover from that comment.
There's one interesting thing that's just from your answer here, right? So one interesting thing of Java is that Java is really an ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
So, when you talk about Java, and you mentioned Spring, you mentioned test containers, you mentioned so I think that the cool thing that Java have is is this ecosystem of tools or frameworks of technologies, and that really make Java, because we're discussing, there's other languages, and there's always you mentioned you playing around JavaScript. One of the discussions that we're having here was teaching Java, right, and how complicated it is right now. It's like especially students at university that you should do Python instead of Java, this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I really love about Java is that the ecosystem for Java is so professional, right? Because you mentioned test containers, for example, and how many languages out there. The first thing that you mentioned about the importance of the frameworks and everything is actually the testing, right?
Right.
And so here's an interesting story, right? So the other day, I'm not going to name names here, but the other day we were in the JCP, the Java Community Process, right? And so the JCP is discussing how to the Java in education effort, right? So how to get Java back into education, all that.
Sure.
And so we invited some people from the JVM team, right, to talk about it. And so the question we posed was, okay, guys, so you guys are hiring top developers, right? And developers are coming out of the university, all that. So what do you think you need? Actually, the question was exactly this, right? Besides Java, what does a student need to be hired by the JVM team, right? As an intern, for example, right?
Oh.
And so the answer was very interesting. So the guy said, actually, Java is not that important because we can teach them Java.
Right.
But there's one thing that's very hard to teach.
It's ChatGPT.
No,
sorry.
It's testing.
Really?
It's testing, right? Because students don't come out of the university with the testing mindset, right? Okay. And so in getting someone to get the importance of testing and actually putting testing as as in the front end, in the front part, right? This is hard, right? Because it requires a different way of thinking about software.
It does take a mindset. Yeah, right. I've always wondered, like, how do you know your code is right if you don't have a test?
Exactly, but that is, it's funny enough because you are in Java maybe not as long as me, but
quite as long, but long enough.
But long enough, right?
My first version was 1.0. Either 6 or 0.8, one of those. So
right, but
really early, yeah.
But at that time, right? Testing in the industry in general,
right,
was not a big thing.
No,
right?
And that's the funny part. I worked on these Fortran programs that had 50, 60,000 lines of code. I don't think there was one test case.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so we never heard anything about testing. But here's the thing: Java had testing from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because of the TCK.
Right.
So the TCK was a fundamental part of Java, and Sun had this tool that would that would run the TCK. And so actually Sun put out a tool to run tests on your code, the same test that we did on the TCK. Sun put I don't remember the name of the tool anymore, but
it brings up, okay.
So just want to finish here.
Yeah.
So it's interesting enough that because Java had this focus on testing, right? The whole industry today changed it.
Yeah.
Right. We saw that going on. So I love that you mentioned this, because that's the way I see Java. I see Java is this very. It's not because it's complicated. It's not because it has this professional mindset, right? And so when I think about students don't want to do Java, for example, in the university, I totally get that, right? Because they want to do the non-professional thing, right? But as professors, right, or as teaching, right, we should be actually showing them. So here's the professional thing, right? If you want to be, it doesn't matter if you want to be a developer or you want to go as a career, but if you want to do software, you should be looking at doing software in a professional way.
Well, and they have to learn also that writing code with tests makes you code faster.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize, and yet that it's so much easier because at least then you have confidence. By the way, there was somebody from Brazil for you. I don't know.
Hey, Victor, how you doing, man? It's early for him, right? Very early, right? It's like 8 o'clock or something.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. But what I also think is interesting, and this is something that isn't true on many other languages, even from the beginning, Sun didn't think of Java as their product. It's the Java language specification that was the product. It was a spec.
Yeah.
And then the Java compiler was their reference implementation.
Right.
And therefore they needed a test kit because any other company was allowed to make their own implementation of Java. Like IBM created one right at the beginning. They've always had their own.
Yeah.
And therefore they needed a test kit to validate that, yes, this was a legitimate Java.
Right.
And that legacy lives to this day, where you have a dozen vendors providing implementations of OpenJDK or builds of OpenJDK or their own implementations. And a lot of people coming in from outside don't get that. And they wonder, well, which one's Java? Well, they all are.
Right.
Because again, it's really the spec and the test kit that determine whether you're a Java or not. And so that testing mentality probably was a side effect of that.
Exactly. And I think this, have you ever heard of the Joy's law?
Bill
Joy? Yeah.
Probably, but I don't know. The name.
So I always loved the Joy's law, and I think that Java, Bill Joy was instrumental in actually having the Java specification. So you got the Java specification, the first book. Bill Joy was one of the authors because he was instrumental in actually getting a specification done for Java, right? And that was a lot of his mindset, because Bill Joy used to say that, wait, what? Oh, I thought, no, okay. No.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought of something I said here, right? But yeah.
Problem for the CI folks, yeah.
Yes, CI folks, right? Yes. Well, you became, right, at some point.
Vincent's the guy who came up with the phrase Tales from the Jar Side.
Tales from the Jar Side? Oh, did you know that,
He invited me to give a talk at an Oracle conference on Java experience and everything. And I said, a keynote. And I'm like, what do you want me to say? He says, well, let's call it Tales from the Jar Side. Right. And I just told about my history in Java.
That's
so
cool.
I owe him an assist still. But anyway, you were saying Bill Joy, what was his law?
So Bill Joy has, you can search it online to get the exact words, but Joy's law is a law that says, no matter how big you are, innovation always happens elsewhere. Right?
Oh, okay.
Because no matter how big you are, there's more people outside of where you are than inside.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So Bill Joy has always had this vision that you should create technology in a way that allowed others to innovate, right? Because you can't hold innovation inside your own company, because you're not going to innovate fast enough.
That's the whole cathedral versus the bazaar thing. Yeah.
Right. Yes. And so I think that's, the fact that Bill Joy was instrumental for the Java specification, I think that has a lot to do with this view that, if we're gonna create a language, we're gonna create something new, others have to be able to innovate on that, right? And if you think about it, how much contribution have you, think about Java, and in 27 years of Java technology, how many contributions there is from IBM, from Oracle, from NetBeans, and Netscape, right? And who else did all of these, right? So SAP and all the big vendors, Intel, right? So and
sorry,
yeah, so right, so ARM, right? So all of those guys put so much effort, right, into improving Java, and there's no way. That's why I think that when you see any other runtime out there, right? I think it's funny that when Java came out, everyone was bashing Java because of the runtime. But today, there's no programming language without a runtime. Everyone has a runtime, right?
Right.
And so no. But the amount of effort, the amount of work that has been done in the Java runtime is unparalleled, right? In the industry, how many companies and man hours have into that. So that's why it's so much better.
Developer hours, to be inclusive.
Developer hours, yes, developer hours, right? Yes.
Couple of things. Okay, one was on that comment about the book on struts. I have to honestly say I don't remember which book I learned struts from. There was an early one, I think, by I think it was, oh shoot, I'm blanking on the name. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I do remember, however, that I got roped into teaching a Struts 2 course in the early days. And I ordered a book, and I won't say which one it was or where it's from. It has the significance of being the only book I ever physically threw across a room. It was so bad.
All right.
Yeah, the promises were not fulfilled. It was just stapled together information from the websites, and it wasn't consistent, or it was so bad. I remember that. We have another... Is that? Oh, Victor saying hi, Diego. I'm sorry, I missed that. Yeah.
Yes.
And then this one was there's Diego. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Diego.
Got it.
So Diego, let me tell you this. I'm on a tour right now around Europe. I'm visiting 9 countries and giving 13, participating in 13 events. And so my last stop is in Portugal, right?
Ah.
And so it looks like I'm gonna do Lisbon, right? And it seems that I'm also going to be on Coimbra, right? And so if Coimbra is added, that means I'm going to do 14 events in Europe, right? So I'm not sure yet. So,
gee, you think that's enough? I want to throw in a few more.
Yeah, that's
You're
good,
going to give Venkat a hard time. No, thank you, Mala. I was going to make a segue to that as well, because Bruno decided in his little marketing email to say that we were going to tell you how to double your salary from your manager. Right?
That was on social media, right?
On social media, right, right. So anyway, Mala said, we're going to talk about the Managing Your Manager book, the Help Your Boss Help You, which, yes, I have a question. What are some myths about this topic from the perspective of manager and one who's being managed? Well, here's the thing that a lot of people, here's how I phrase it, that a lot of people don't realize. First of all, nobody likes to think about this, but conflict with your manager is inevitable because you want different things. Now, there's an overlap. If there's no overlap, why are you working together at all?
Right, of course.
But the responsibilities and the metrics and the way managers are measured are different from the way regular employees / developers, whatever the job may be, are measured. And therefore the priorities and incentives are different. And therefore sooner or later, both sides are going to do things that are perfectly natural for them and wind up with a conflict. So double the salary, right?
Yes,
Want that, right?
Hey, Bruno. Hey, Bruno, how you doing? It's a good friend.
Oh, that's a Bruno.
Yes,
okay.
Another Bruno right there, right? So, hey, Bruno, how you doing, man?
Yeah, with also the email was how to manage your manager,
yes,
right?
That's the email.
Social media post,
right? No, that's the email I sent, right? So yeah.
Well, so the thing is if because the problem is most employees, not just developers, but most employees in any company feel that when they get into a conflict with their boss, they only have 2 choices. There's only 2 options. One is to just swallow their objections and go along with what the boss wants, which unfortunately is likely to be the same thing the company wants because they're the ones with the power. They're going to back up the manager. Or they can leave. And both of those are extreme positions, and neither of them get you what you really want, which is for your manager to take your desires into account when they're making decisions. that they have to know what you want and try to accommodate it as best as possible.
Right.
And there's got to be a middle way. It can't just be, well, I won't say anything or I'm going to leave, because neither of those is going to work, especially because if you leave, then who's to say the same circumstance won't happen in the next position anyway? It's still going to happen over again. Right. So the key is to build a professional relationship with your manager that gives your manager what they need and still lets you retain your own self-respect. Right. I call it in the book what they call constructive loyalty. Now, I use the term loyalty and have to be very careful, because the problem is people hear words like loyalty and trust and all of that, and they think loyalty like you would have to a spouse or to a family member or to a good friend. And it's not that at all. Right. It's a professional relationship. This is a business relationship. It's temporary. Mm-hmm. It may last a long time, but it may not too. Mm-hmm. You're working together and you have to find out, what do they need and what do you need? And what you need is for them to hear you. Right. And to understand you and to react to what you say. And what they need is your support, at least publicly. I mean, I'm not saying don't argue with your manager. In fact, in the book, what I get into is the whole idea of the prisoner's dilemma, you know, the most famous problem ever in mathematical theory of games. And we talk about how to apply the prisoner's dilemma, the tit for tat strategy for that, to the employee manager relationship, so that both sides can get what they need out of it. The really important part is to be able to push back in a way that doesn't threaten the loyalty relationship. Right. So the manager learns that you can object with it only being an issue and not a crisis. Right. You're not walking in there and saying, hey, if I don't get this, I'm out of here. If you've already gotten to that point, well, yeah, it's going to be tough. Yeah. But that's why you need periodic meetings with your manager one-on-one, so that nobody else knows about this. You need to tell them when you're not happy and why, but you can couch it in a way that lowers the intensity level. Look, when you did that, when you gave this project to somebody else and I really wanted that, I wasn't happy about that. I really wanted that project. Oh, I didn't know you wanted that. I mean, they're, as my wife would say, she's not a mind reader. They need to be told. And all the good managers I know want to hear that feedback, as long as it doesn't threaten the overall relationship, as long as it doesn't box them into a corner and put them into a problem. Now, here's the thing. That's a long-term strategy, and it doesn't always work. I'm not going to pretend this always works, but it gives you something to try, so that you don't not say anything and feel like you're being gaslighted or whatever. It feels awful when you still need to be able to look in the mirror and say, well, at least I stood up for myself. Right. It also makes it clear to the boss that you can disagree without it being a crisis. And therefore they may learn that, okay, if they do something bad, you don't like, they're going to hear about it. And the most surprising part of it all is sometimes they change. Sometimes it works. Right. I've dealt with some managers who are real bullies, and now bully is a relative term, but I mean, a guy whose social skills were very poor and didn't behave well at all. And I push back, but I do it in a way that doesn't threaten anything. It's done in private, it's done carefully. And of course, a lot of times I don't get what I want. It doesn't work. But again, it's a long-term strategy. And if eventually, after many tries, it doesn't work, well, you've also built up an experience base of judging how to say what you want. And when you go to HR and they say, did your boss know you were unhappy? You could say, yeah, I talked this point and this point. So you built up all this evidence that you told them. Right. And, sometimes they actually learn. Now, I want to separate that from actual abuse, because that's unacceptable under any circumstances. And also, I freely admit that the pushback here, the same words that someone like me would say to a manager are going to sound completely different from someone like Mala. Someone who's a woman or underrepresented minority, some guys will just hear things differently. And even women managers, doesn't really matter. So you have to tune it to your own circumstances. Right. But it gives you something to try that doesn't require you to leave immediately. And it might work too. So at any rate, I go into all this in the book, and that's right. So I don't know if that falls into this idea of a misconception. The big misconception, again, is that people feel they have no way out. And I can't believe we got into a conflict again. Well, of course you did. It's inevitable. So don't view that as a bad thing. Just view it as part of building the overall relationship. The goal is someday that manager is going to be in a meeting trying to get you a promotion or a raise or assigned to a project you want or something you want, and you can't be in there, and you need that person to be your ally. And that's what you're trying to build. You're trying to build the relationship based on this constructive loyalty so that you can still stand up for yourself and yet get them to listen and hear you and try to accommodate. Anyway, go ahead.
So the one thing I like to say a lot, right? And yeah, so then I think we can answer that question, right? But one thing I like to say a lot, Ken, is that you know, when a lot of people think that, oh, I don't like my manager. That's what I hear this a lot. Oh, I don't like my manager, or my manager's not competent enough, or you know, my manager doesn't understand me, or I can't do that because my manager doesn't let me, or something like this, right? So, and then I tell people, I say, look, you don't have to like your manager, right? You know, you don't have to like him. You don't even have to,
or her,
right?
Yeah.
Or him or her, right? So you don't have
in the book, by the way, I use the plural they or them for manager. It seems to be the generic way to do it.
Okay. All right.
Sorry,
so yeah. So
you don't have to like them.
You don't have to like your managers. And so, but one thing that you have to understand is that, you know, your job is to make your manager successful, right? You know, so you can't forget that, right? You know, because you know, your manager being successful, the chance that you're gonna be successful, the team are gonna be successful, the project gonna be successful. And so now, one thing that for you to make your manager successful is that you have to understand what they want, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't understand what they want, you can do what they want you to do, right? And so, and one interesting thing is that, you know, I know you look like more or less like this. And one problem is that many times the manager doesn't know what's success for them.
Right.
And
well,
so,
and also sometimes they're just repeating what they've been told.
Exactly. Right. So,
I mean, in fact, that's what you need the relationship for. See, we are technical people, and therefore we're always operating at the edge of what we know how to do. I mean, they don't hire technical people to do a routine job that's been done 100 times, or the people get bored and they leave, you know, and that's an expensive way to solve a problem. So we're always at the edge of what we know, and therefore feel very uncomfortable, insecure. You know, we go through a learning curve on every project.
Right.
You need a relationship with the managers first so they can tell that when you're venting about being lost or uncomfortable, yeah, that's just part of their normal process, or no, they're really in trouble. I need to step in here. Because I've had managers who panic and step in. Likewise, you need to know them well enough to know, okay, this person's saying this not because they believe it, but because this is policy and they have no choice. Or no, this manager really means that. The way I say about making your boss successful, I just phrase it as you have to make your boss look good to their boss.
Right. Yes.
That's all.
Yes.
And violate that at your peril. I mean, you do not throw your boss under the hood, under the bus here when a problem goes wrong. But I mean, but there are ways. Again, you focus on pushing back on things you don't like the person who asked the question. Go ahead. You're going to say
before we get the question. Right? So because the one thing that we have to understand, right? So when you talk about conflict, and you know, one of the most important skills that we have in our careers, right, is negotiation, right? We have to learn how to negotiate. And a lot of people think of negotiation as a conflict on, you know, using the bad connotation of conflict, right? And maybe that's what Bruno's coming along right there, right?
That was Bruno's question.
Yes. So you have the bad connotation of conflict that, you know, I dislike you, or you know, or we disagree or something like this. But negotiation is a conflict in a way that we have a problem, right? And we have to work together to solve it. So negotiation is a problem-solving strategy, right? You know, it's not like I want to have everything. You know, so we promise they're going to teach you how to double your salary. We're gonna do that, right? And why not, man? You know,
but the thing
I'll show you how to do it. Right? So you have to apply it, right?
Well, people do sometimes ask me, how do you get promoted?
Right.
You know, how do you do that? And that's a whole separate negotiation thing.
Yeah, it's a negotiation, but it's a negotiation.
Yes,
right?
it is.
And so the negotiation is like, you know, you have a problem. So you want something, your boss wants something, right? And so in a negotiation, you have to find a way to do a win-win situation, right? You know, you might not get everything you want, your boss might not get everything he wants, right? But what we really want is that we want to have a situation where everyone feels that you know, they advance it, they move it forward, right?
But the one Bruno was asking was saying that it did have a conflict, and though it's already been resolved, seemed to have crystallized. And in my view, what stopped me from advancing my career, That's
So-
why the idea of having a periodic meeting is good, because you can bring it up again and
Yes.
bring it up again and then let it go a while or whatever. But each time, you don't want there to be a long gap between when they do something you don't like and you talk about it.
Right.
And if they don't resolve it, well, fine, you get back to work.
Right.
But then next time it happens, you bring it up again. Now, again, this isn't perfect. It's not going to work in every case, but it's certainly better than doing nothing.
And so, Bruno,
Oh.
here's the thing that I want you to think about, right? So
yes.
any of those situations that are unresolved, right? And you're saying that is resolved,
Oh, good.
but you still think that's damaging you, so it's not resolved, right?
You like the way you said it.
Okay, right, yes. Okay, so this thing that you think that's is resolved, but you think there's still a problem. So we have, the best way to solve negotiation issues, right, is to bring light to it, right? That's the way I see it, right? So if something is bothering you, Bruno, you have to find a way to tell your boss, say, hey, boss, this is bothering me, right? I don't know why.
Yeah.
I may be totally wrong, right? Maybe it's just my impression.
But I want you to know this matters to me and I don't like it.
Right. It's not, this is bothering me. And so, and a lot of times, Bruno, and you don't have to make an accusation, right? You can ask questions. Just ask questions is a good thing, right? And so, because a lot of times your manager is going to say, oh man, it's just your impression, right? So look, or maybe they might, right? They might tell you, or they might say, yeah, there's something there, right? So I did not like what you did to me that time. Either,
and there's a handful of things here. There's a bunch of stuff going on. Like some managers are managers who were promoted from technical ranks.
Right.
And that brings a whole set of different problems.
Yes.
That much of those problems come from the fact that they thought that was going to give them more control over their lives, and discover to their horror they're now the low person on the totem pole competing for funds and resources and everything, and it's not a pleasant experience at all.
Right.
So a lot of them become micromanagers because, hey, I like the technical stuff, let me do that.
Yeah.
A lot of them have no training at all in how to be a manager other than just a pep talk from their boss or a weekend course. Because if you notice, things like executive MBAs and stuff are handed out to managers who are above the group that we talk to, right? I mean, we're the technical people. We're dealing with rookies, the least experienced and the least proficient managers in the organization.
That's right.
And because they're easy to find and easy to replace for the company, they don't start to give them years and months of, these extra courses and training until they're starting to get to the executive level, and therefore they're already good. If you get a good manager, enjoy it, because good managers don't stay in one place very long.
Right.
I mean, if they really have the skills to move up, they're going to look for opportunities everywhere.
Right.
But these same ideas of just assuming that they're just trying to get by just like everybody else, it's almost certainly not personal. If it is personal, it's probably time to move on. But in general, it's more a question of they're being assessed differently than the way you're being assessed. You need to build a relationship so that you can push back and make progress. Yeah,
relationship is the most important thing, because really you can't do negotiation if you don't understand what the other side is worth. Right. So Vincent says here, for example,
deal with this one. Yeah.
Some managers don't accept a one-on-one meeting.
Now,
right?
Okay. First of all, every good manager I've ever met just assumes they're going to have one-on-one periodic meetings with their boss. But in fact, that's why no good manager wants more than, say, 10 direct reports. I mean, they may manage an entire division, but they only want 10 direct reports, because that takes up so much of their time, just meeting with them one-on-one every week or every other week, that it's hard. So it's usually the ones who are feeling insecure themselves, who don't want to talk to you because they don't have any answers, who don't want to meet, But the way I always couch it is you say, look, this is not a crisis. I just want to let you know what's going on. I want to keep you in the loop, and not with a bunch of people around on a meeting about a project. No, I'm going to tell you about problems that are not yet crises, but could develop into them.
Right.
Plus, I want to tell you what I'm thinking and what my goals are and where I want to be. It's really hard for managers to turn that down. And the trick that I used to use, this is sleazy, I don't know if this is any good. I would ask for a 20-minute meeting.
Right.
Because nobody ever schedules a 20-minute meeting. They always schedule a 30-minute meeting. And you say, yeah, we'll leave early, which of course you never do. And you always come up with things to say. But it just sounds shorter, and sometimes that works. The last thing is Mala brought up the comment. I think it was Mala brought up that turns out not to be the case. For those who are not aware of that, it's my favorite way, and I didn't come up with this. I wish I knew where I found it, but it's my favorite way of telling your boss they are completely and totally wrong, is the phrase, that turns out not to be the case. You can throw in, I can see why you might think that. Try not to roll your eyes, okay? But that turns out not to be the case. I mean, what it says is, I heard you, I understood you, I applied it to our problem, and it didn't fit.
Right.
I mean, that's the most non-aggressive way of telling your boss they're an idiot, that I've ever heard. At any rate, so go ahead.
Yeah. So the whole thing about the one-on-ones, right? Here's the problem with the managers, right? Most managers, as Ken was saying, a lot of managers are,
we'll come back to that.
They're not good managers, right? So that's a reality.
Well, again, we're dealing with the rookies. We're dealing with the lowest level.
We're doing the lowest level, right? So then what happens is that they're used to have meetings for emergencies, right? For crisis, like Ken was just explaining.
They're so busy. Yeah.
But here's a problem. That's true for the developers too.
Yeah.
Right. We developers, we don't like meetings, right? So we only do meetings because we want to get a raise, right? We only do meetings because we want to get a promotion,
or we have a problem,
or we have a problem, right? And many times, it's not because we have a problem. It's because things are exploding, and we want to get out. Right? It's like so don't let this thing happen, right? So you have to get your manager to talk to you. And look, I totally agree. Like, having a 5 minutes meeting, a 15 minutes meeting, just ask for a short meeting, and you can start the subject. And then here, let me show you an example of someone that did not want to do a meeting. Right. And so we had this customer one time, and, so they were like a big customer, and they do not want to, they were doing like this conversation with different companies. Right. So they gave us 30 minutes to propose a project.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, guys, that's not enough, right? We don't even know enough about the project to propose anything. And so I talked to my team, and so it's no, Bruno, we only have 30 minutes. So what we're going to do is that we're going to actually it was less than that. It was like 15 minutes. It was really short. So they gave us 15 minutes to propose a project. Maybe it was 30, but I remember being very short, right?
Okay.
But so they come in and say, we only have that time. And so my team was like, we're just going to go there. We're going to propose it. And I said, guys, we can't propose anything. We have to ask questions. We have no time for questions, Bruno. No, we have to ask questions. No, Bruno, we have no time for questions. And I said, okay, can I ask one question? I said, okay, Bruno, you ask one question, and then we present our topics. There's no time for it, right? And so the other side, they decided it was a short meeting. They decided on the format. And so, but I went there and I asked one question. I said, guys, what is success for you? If we do this right, what is success for you?
Right.
And so they start telling us all kinds of things, right? So it's funny because one person, success is very easy because it's blah, blah, blah. And then another person said, no, that's not what we're thinking here. Yeah. And so they started discussion among them, right? And so what happened was that my team was desperate because we only have a few minutes.
Right.
But then they were discussing among them, and they said, you know what? Let's reschedule a 1 hour meeting so we can go over those things with you guys, right?
Very
good. So here's the thing, right? So if you don't understand what's going on, if you don't understand what your boss wants, if he does not understand what you want, that's a problem, right? So schedule a 5 minutes talk, and then ask questions to your boss, right? And then he's going to say, you know what? This is very important. Let's schedule a larger meeting. That's great, right? That's what you need.
But a couple of last things, because we're going to have to start wrapping up. One was there was a question here.
Let's see all the questions that we can answer.
Yeah, this one said, when the relationship with the manager is strained due to various technical disagreements, that happens. Is it time to change jobs or stay and suffer? No, it's time to push back. It's time to say, this is what I believe. This is what I think we should do. I think that's important. But when they overrule you, and they often will, and say, no, this is what we're going to do, then it's time to get back to work and try to make that happen. And if the project fails, well, you're a team anyway. That's the thing. You're not doing this yourself. You're doing it with the team. And while that feels like you're not being honest, I mean, you don't throw your manager under the bus when it goes bad. What actually happens is everybody's going to know who made the decision, especially your boss's boss is going to know who made the actual decision. Okay. You can object, but the fact that you're being a team player and trying to make it work after that is huge amount of points in your favor. Because if your manager winds up getting moved out or a problem, people are going to go, no, I can work with that person. You know, whereas if you try to say, well, I'm going to the boss's boss and I'm going to go around, you know, you're going to get doomed. I mean, that's a very high risk, very low reward strategies to go around.
Right. So let me
but
just,
you can push back. Absolutely.
You should push back, right? So but here's the thing that he says: time to change job or stay in service. So I want to talk specific about that, right?
Yeah.
So first of all,
because that does happen. Yeah,
it
you don't want to
happen,
get to that point, right?
Right. So basically, here's my view. Well, who said that? Vincent, right? So Rafael, hey Rafael, here's my view on changing jobs.
Yeah.
Right. It's very simple, right? You don't change jobs, right? Yes. Hear me out, right?
Where are you going with this?
You know, because look, the best place for you to grow is where you are right now. People trust you, but they know you. So the best place for you to go is where you are right now. So you focus on working and making, you know, pushing back, all this kind of things that you're doing. You work on improving yourself, right? But you are always open to offers. That's very important. You are always open to offers. You know, it doesn't matter how good or how bad your job is right now. You are always open to offers. That means anytime you receive an irrefutable offer, you can switch jobs, right? Because it's an amazing offer, right? Because here's the thing, Rafael, if you're looking for a job because you had a disagreement with your boss, and the first interview you're gonna do, it's gonna be obvious for the interviewer that you're looking for a job because you have a disagreement with your boss. And the interviewer is gonna think, you know what? We're gonna have disagreement here too. So the first time this guy has an disagreement, he's gonna leave. Yeah. So don't do that. So it's much better, Rafael, to be in an interview and say, look, you know what? I had some rough moments with my boss, right? But we worked together. I pushed back. We discussed things. I'm always improved because I love where I am right now. For you to take me out of here, you have to pay me lots of money.
Yeah, give me a
right?
good offer.
So
I'll only add to that you are always evaluating your manager at all times,
right,
with the decision, is this relationship salvageable? Is this something that can be effective in the long run? Is this going to work for me in my career? And the answer to that may turn out to be no at some point, and then it's time to look around, right?
Yes.
To get that other alternative.
Yeah,
offer.
I think you. So, my opinion is that you should always be looking around, right? You should always be.
So if you already have one foot out the door anyway, because you've already decided, right? Yeah, this isn't going to work for me. No harm in trying the pushback strategy anyway.
It's even better.
What have you got to lose?
Right.
You know, and this is a way you can practice, because it's always so stressful to push back against someone who has power over you, or rather over your career, really.
Right.
And this gives you a chance to practice, to tune how you're going to say things, although it will be different for different relationships, and how to express yourself in a way that doesn't threaten the relationship. You know, and again, it may work. They may actually bend. They may not, but you never want your decision to leave to come as a surprise to your boss.
Right.
Because if it's a surprise, they missed any chance they ever had of making things better, of making it work out for you.
And you know what? That's why I like the irrefutable offer, right? So I prefer that you come to your boss and say, hey, boss, look, I really like here, but I can't turn this down, right?
Yeah.
And your boss is gonna, you know, if you have an irrefutable offer, I've had many times in my life, you know, even the thing we were discussing in the beginning, right? So when I left my own company to go work for Sun,
right.
my partner, right, that was my boss and my company, right? He said, man, you got to go do this, right? Because it's you know, it's such an amazing offer, right? So that's the thing that I think, Rafael, that you always put yourself in a position that you can receive offers like this.
But
right?
I will, just to wrap that, I will freely acknowledge that these are things that I've learned mostly by making mistakes over my career. Yes. My experience may not line up with yours. I mean, I freely understand if your background is very different from mine, your experiences are very different from mine. If you object to any of this, if you really think there's some errors here, please feel free to let me know. I'm more than, I mean, how else am I going to learn? You know, I did try over the years with the presentation and with the book and everything, to run it by as many people as I could who were different from me, you know, age-wise, sex, you know, everything as different as I could find. So to see what they said, you know, what their opinion was. But it's an opinion, and it seems to be what has coalesced in my experience over the last, I don't know, 30, 35 years.
Yeah, Mala said before here, right, that she had, supportive environment and other things. So yes, there are places that you have support. There are places you don't, right? And for me, Ken, I think that's I draw the line on when things are getting, like you mentioned before, things are getting, maybe not aggressive, but it's like, it's damaging. Right. When things are damaging you, damage your values. Right. Those kind of places, then you have that's when you don't have an option. Right. So then, you should just.
Oh, when it's abusive.
Abusive. That's
if
what
it crosses the line to abusive. Yeah. That's just simply no excuse for that.
So, hey, Anand, how you doing, man? So Anand is from India. And Anand has a very interesting situation.
Just joined now.
Yes.
Where were you? No, I'm sorry.
Right. So no, yes. So
I have a manager who wants.
Anand's a good friend, right? So
okay. So he says, Anand says, I have a manager who wants to avoid conflict. Well, so do most of us.
Yes.
Which works well at times because I get stuff that I ask for, right? Because they don't want to have a conflict, right? And he wants to avoid conflict with me, but it's an issue if he needs to get an approval from higher ups because he doesn't want to push for anything, right? Yeah. How do you deal with a non-confrontational manager who doesn't fight for his reportees at times? Okay. The only relationship you have any influence over, the only one, is the direct relationship with your boss. And therefore, the only person you can really push back on is your boss. If your boss does not take the initiative and follow up and go and get you what you want with higher ups, you simply have to go back and put more pressure on them saying, look, you promised me I was going to get this and I still don't have it, and leave the rest to them, because you can't. If you've ever gotten involved in an argument between your parents, both sides turn on you. It's a disaster.
It's terrible.
And your boss has a relationship with their boss.
Right.
They know each other. There's an established relationship there, and you don't want to be in the middle of that.
Right.
So all you can do is push back again. Bring it up at the next meeting. Hey, I thought I was going to get this, and again, if it doesn't bend eventually, it might be time to take more significant actions.
Right.
But that's one to focus on. You cannot affect the relationship between your boss and their management. If it turns out they just are never going to be a successful manager because they can't handle that, well, now you know that. Right. That's what you'll learn over the process. So one other last thing, and then I'll let that go. Related to what Bruno was saying, the job you are always the most qualified for is the job you currently have. So when you look around, or even if you look at promotions or you look at anything else, you're always going to have that feeling like, I'm not sure I know what I'm doing. I'm not sure I'm qualified. I'm not, the whole imposter syndrome, all of that. But it's because the job you are most qualified for is your current job, because you're doing it now. It's okay. You can learn, you can grow for those other things.
So one interesting thing about what Ken is saying here, right? So, you cannot affect the relationship with the boss of your boss, right? But here's the thing: you have a relationship with your boss,
right? So
you can help your boss be a better boss, right?
You can provide them with the arguments.
Right. Yes, you can help them. You can ask them questions. So what did the other guy say, right? What he doesn't want to do? Oh, I'm not so sure because I didn't talk to him yet because I don't have the arguments. So I can provide the arguments, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I think that's important. It's a lot of times. Look, when you negotiate, right? Sometimes you negotiate with one person, and that person has to negotiate on your behalf with someone else, right? So you have to help that person really understand your arguments, really understand what you want, right? And see the things the way you're seeing. Otherwise, they can't take that thing forward, right?
Now, so let's acknowledge that's really annoying, right? That's not your job, that's their job.
Yes.
It's really annoying to have to do that, but the alternative is you don't get what you want.
Exactly.
So you provide them the argument so that they can say, oh yeah, so-and-so has to have this position. By the way, there is one book on negotiation I should mention that it's called Never Split the Difference.
That's an awesome book. Yes.
Yeah. I can't remember the author's name, but if you just look at Amazon or wherever, Never Split the Difference. It was written by a former FBI hostage negotiator. And I saw that title and I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be really hard edged. it's probably the most emotionally aware book I've ever
Yeah.
read. It's all about figuring out what the other person needs and how to use techniques like reflective listening and everything to get what you need out of them. It may not work. Don't buy into the whole, the whole framework and everything unless you feel it works for you. But it's a decent book. It's a good book
Yes.
on negotiation.
Yeah, something Voss, that's his name.
Voss,
right? So,
yeah,
yes.
Richard Voss, something like that.
Something
but,
Voss. I don't
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
Yes. So that, so I buy into a lot on that discussion, right? So
you thought it was very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that so what Voss talks about is that negotiation, the most important skill of the most important mindset on negotiation is a learning experience, right? So when you negotiate with someone, you're actually learning what they want, learning how they think, learning, and I think that
what do they really want?
What they really want,
may not
right?
be what they're saying they want, right?
Exactly, right. So I think that this is a very, very important skill. Learn how to negotiate. That's going to be awesome.
So to bring it together, we start off by talking about the fact that conflict with your manager is inevitable. But actually, that's where the answers are. Because if both of you want different things, then it is possible to have a win-win situation. It is possible to satisfy both at the same time. And that's what both sides will be looking for. And we got a nice compliment about the energy.
And I like to say, we're looking for a win-win-win situation, right? Because you win, your boss wins, the company wins, the team wins, right? So look for, when you look for the solution that more people wins, right? This is much, much better, much easier for you to actually get what you want.
I hope some of that helped. Again, it's opinions, but it's opinions that we seem to have agreed on primarily.
Yeah, sure.
And there's way too many years of experience wrapped up in that.
Yes.
I want to mention, by the way, my channel here. First of all, I have a newsletter called Tales from the Jar Side that is at kencousin.substack.com. That's been coming out for 4.5 years. It's free, and the entire archive is available. And this is the associated YouTube channel, which is actually called YouTube at Tales from the Jar Side. I put out, the newsletter comes out every Sunday. And then on Monday, I put a video version of the newsletter where the basic philosophy is if you didn't have time or you didn't feel like reading the newsletter, that's fine. I'll read it to you and give you backstory. It's like a director's cut. And also I try to put out at least one technical video in addition to that a week. Things on JUnit or Spring or Gradle or whatever happens to be something I dealt with that particular week.
That's cool.
So I would love to get to be a channel as big as what Bruno manages on a regular
that's all good,
basis.
man.
What's your channel called again?
So actually, let me just kind of put so I just kind of point a point of entry for all of you guys, right?
Yeah,
If you go to code4.life, right?
Go.
So I believe that we code for fun, we code for work, we code for life, right? So go code4.life. If you get there on the homepage, you're going to have access to a set of interviews that I did with some of the top Java champions in the world, right? So, so Heinz Kabutz is there. You mentioned Andres is there. Ixchel is there. So I interviewed some of the top Java champions in the market to talk about career, right? To talk about their tips on how you improve your career. So you go to code4.life and you have access to that. And also, I'll send you more information about, about YouTube channels, all those kind of things we send.
And I'm trying to keep the live stream going every other week. It's too hard to schedule more frequent than that. But yeah, so we'll keep doing this again, and maybe we'll have you back, or maybe I'll come on your channel or something like that.
Yes, okay. So we wanted to do this like a both channels at the same time. Technology didn't help us right now, but we're gonna do it.
We'll figure it out.
We're gonna figure it out, right? So thanks a lot, Ken. It was great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having so many people here.
Yeah.
The recording will be uploaded to YouTube,
it's
this
right
afternoon.
there.
Yeah, it's already there, right? So feel free and keep in touch. So thank you very much. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, so thanks everyone for being here. I love the question, I love the comments. And thanks a lot, Ken. It was great to be here with you, man. Thanks a lot. See you guys.
Take care.